This is John Ecken with Tandem Solution, and I'm here today to talk about how training is changing in our current market. We're going to talk about 4 different things today. We're going to first look at the evolution of training, see the different modalities of training, and kind of how we're evolving to the current day scenarios that we're in. Talk about how public versus private training fits into those modalities, and then just look at what kind of decisions, what factors should I take to make the decision of what type of training is right for me. All right, so when we look at the evolution of training, training has really changed over the last 10 years or so. Because I've been involved in training for almost 20 years. And when I first got involved, it was pretty much 100% what we'd call instructor-led training. And what I mean by instructor-led training is live in person. All the students come to you, typically a classroom that you provide. Occasionally it would be off-site at the customer's location. But it was what we would consider that standard training where it's 5 days in length. You listen to the instructor for a little bit, you do some labs, you take some breaks, you kind of start that process over again. Shortly after that, we began to look at some e-learning. So multiple companies began to come out with kind of self-paced e-learning modules that allowed the student to watch a slide presentation, listen to a video, maybe take an assessment, but just really kind of on their own do some training. In the last 5 years, virtual instructor-led training has really come into its own form. And this is allowing us to really offer classes to students outside of different geographical areas, bring them all together into one virtual environment, virtual classroom. It has really revolutionized the training industry because it allows us to have a wider reach and to really hold more classes than we would if they were just instructor-led kind of in your local geographical area. We're also now starting to see the movement to on-demand training. So as people are busier, trying to do more with less, sometimes the normal 5-day training classes aren't going to fit anymore. And on-demand allows us to go a step above that self-paced e-learning and still get the training that is needed. And then the final piece on top of that would be a blended on-demand solution. So that blended solution kind of takes some of the best things from the on-demand, some of the best things from our virtual instructor-led environment, and pieces those together to come up with a full solution that you or your company can take part in. So we'll start with our traditional instructor-led training. So the benefits of this type of training, really number one is that the instructor is in the room with you. You've got the ability to ask that instructor questions. You've got the ability to see that instructor's demonstration. You can watch the instructor as they talk and how they pronounce things and really focus on key topics. You're going to have interaction with students. You're going to be able to talk to students from multiple companies and really see what problems they're having. See some solutions that maybe they have already found to problems that you're having or maybe will be facing in the future. It typically has a better hands-on experience. A lot of the instructor-led classes, the equipment that you work on is right there in the room with you. If you're doing a Cisco class, you might have the routers and switches right there, or maybe the phones. In a Microsoft environment, the classroom's set up as that lab environment for you. Typically because of that, because you have everything right there, you don't end up having connectivity issues or the technical issues that you have, the instructor's there ready to help you out with. What's its weakness? The most expensive. Having that equipment in a physical location, having the instructor in a physical location is a cost. Most of these classes have to be run 5 days in a row. So that means all your employees that need to go through this training class have to be out of work for 5 days. And again, that's not always possible in this day and age where we're trying to, again, do more with less. You might have to travel. As more and more classes have gone virtual, if you really want to sit and be in front of an instructor, that means you might have to travel to that instructor, whereas in the past it might have been offered locally. And then just a high level class cancellations. Because of the expense, because of the need to get everybody in one location, it leads to more classes that need to be canceled or maybe even postponed than our virtual instructor-led type training. Self-paced e-learning. Again, the big benefit of this that most organizations find is just the expense. That they can go in for a low cost and give a large number of training titles to an individual. Those individuals have a year, maybe even more, access time to those titles, and the selling point is that, I can get so much for so little. The weakness of that, it doesn't get used. It's difficult for your students to really engage. If you just are sitting watching a video or listening to someone talk for 5, 6, 7 hours of training, that's difficult. So it's really hard to get people to buy in and actually use that. The lack of labs. A lot of really self-paced e-learning doesn't have traditional lab environments that you can use. Often, too, there's no subject matter expert. So when you do have problems, when you do need to ask questions, who do you go to? Recently, probably 5 years or less, we have seen a dramatic shift into virtual instructor-led training. With virtual instructor-led training, we get a large benefit by having tons of classes that are guaranteed and are going to run. And we can offer those guaranteed classes because we're pulling people from all over the place. I can have a couple people from here, a couple people from another geographical location that need the training. And by having those people all that need the same training together, we can run that class. What are those benefits that you still get? Like instructor-led. The instructor's there. Even though they're not physically in the room with you, they're there for that period of time that you're taking that class to help you, to answer your questions. You're using the same content, the same course materials as a live class. So just because it's virtual doesn't mean you're using a different book, doesn't mean you're connecting to a different lab environment. Everything that you would do in a standard instructor-led training class is going to be done in a virtual instructor-led training class. In fact, you even might get more access. A lot of these virtual classes allow you to have access to labs for a couple weeks after the class is over. In some cases, even up to 6 months after the class is over. Most instructor-led classes, those machines are torn down the week afterwards and built back up for a new class. So you don't get that class for a longer period of time. You can also take the class from anywhere. If it's real important that you be in the office in case an emergency arises, that's fine. Take the class from your office. If something does come up, you're right there. You can go fix the problem, come back to class as you need it. If you've got a better learning environment at home, take that class at home. Even if you need a place, we offer places that you can come in. We have special cubes and rooms created and set up just to take those virtual classes. What are some of the weaknesses? Well, because it's all virtual, we do have a higher potential for technical issues. Most of those issues have been solved. The more virtual training that occurs, the more training organizations learn about the issues that they're going to see, and they are able to cut those issues off before they even happen. But we still rely on things like the internet that we just sometimes have no control over. It's still typically a 5-day class. So that whole problem of being out of the office for 5 days really isn't solved with virtual instructor-led training. You do have limited interaction with other students. So unlike instructor-led, where I can sit and I can talk with other students, it's a little more difficult in that virtual environment to hold those types of conversations over a virtual connection. It's still primarily voice and presentation. So, but we are seeing more and more video options. So instead of just listening and seeing the presentation of the instructor, we're moving more into the realm that you're going to be able to actually see the instructor. And it's going to be a good high quality where you want to watch the instructor. And then the cost. The industry has found that the cost to run a virtual class really is no different than running an instructor live class. So you're not going to see a dramatic change in the cost for a virtual versus a instructor-led class. Now, on-demand training. Just recently, we started to see more and more vendors releasing on-demand training. So when you look at places like Cisco, Microsoft, Novell, Oracle, the ability to offer you the same training that you would get in an instructor-led class, but through a on-demand environment, is starting to be more and more available. The benefits of that, one is the expense. The same class that you might take as an instructor-led could potentially be half the cost or even a fourth of the cost of that instructor-led training. You'll typically have access to that class for 90 days or even more. So you have the ability to set your own schedule. You can learn at the pace that you feel is the most comfortable for learning. It's still the same materials. So unlike the e-learning that we saw way back in the past, the on-demand training is the same labs that you would take in an instructor-led class. The videos that you're going to be watching are going to be the same type of instructors that would teach your class. And most of the classes they have taught live in person. So as they're covering material, they know what questions people are going to ask. So they're able to actually place those type of questions into the class. So you're getting the same answer, same questions, same material, same instruction that you would live in person, but now you've got the ability to take that when you need it. What's the weakness? Again, still difficult to engage. Sitting in front of your computer, watching videos, doing labs without someone telling you, okay, it's time to do lab 1. It's more difficult than being in class with that instructor. You still don't have access to that instructor. Now, in some on-demand packages, you do have the ability to contact a subject expert, and they can help you through the process. They can answer questions for you. Right now, there's still a limited number of titles, but that is growing quickly. Microsoft themselves have been adding close to 10 titles a month, and they're doing that based on the most popular classes that people want to take. There's still no interaction, so there's not other students that you're working with. And unlike traditional e-learning, on-demand training is going to be a little bit more limited in time. Because of those lab environments, they're not something that can be given to you for years at a time that you can access. So you do have to go through at a swifter pace than traditional learning. You can take that, though, also as a good sign, because that will kind of force you to use it or you will run out of time. And then lastly, we start to look at the idea of blended learning. In a blended solution, we're going to take the concepts that we saw in on-demand training and mix that with some instructor-led training. So you get both the content that you need, but you also get that subject matter expert there to help you through that process. Many blended solutions meet for a short period of time. You're not going 5 days straight. You might go 2 hours on a Tuesday, 2 hours on a Thursday, and do that for 4 weeks. You might go just one full day a week, come back 2 or 3 weeks later, do another day to reinforce the next set of topics, maybe come back toward the end of the class and kind of wrap class up with that instructor. So it gives you the ability to get your work done, interact with that instructor, but not be out for that 5 days. The end result of that, though, is you really do get the same material, the same result that you would get from a 5-day class over a period of time. A lot of blended solutions even offer office hours for instruction. So if you did have a question while doing a lab, you don't have to necessarily wait the 2 days, 2 weeks, or whatever it would be till your next class. You can come back in and communicate with that instructor immediately or within a certain time period. Same materials again, same lab. You can start on your schedule. If I've got a blended class that started last week and you just decided to work this week, you've got choices. You can start now and you can wait and get into that next class, but you can already get the material, already start working on labs. You can even choose to, I'm going to go ahead and work ahead and I'm going to join in the next class. So, even though I missed the first class of this session, I can get into the next class of this session so that I'm ready to go. So you've got more flexibility. Still the weaknesses, it is still limited in the number of titles. And in fact, blended is even maybe a little less than on demand because not every title still makes sense to have a blended solution. There's still that lack of student interaction and still some limited amount of time that you have to get the training completed. Now, when we look at training, we usually try to talk about 2 types of training, what we call public versus private training. In a public training environment, you're going to look at a course that you like, look at the schedule, and you're going to decide, okay, that's the date for me, and I'm going to take that class. In a private training environment, you're going to have a group of people that have the same needs as you. That group is going to decide on topics. They're going to help determine how much training needs to be accomplished. And then they're going to work with an organization such as Tandem Solution to get that and have that fit of training perfect for them. The good news is our modalities that we just spoke of really work for both. If I look at a private training solution, can I mix a private training solution with on-demand for a blended? Sure. I can take a class that I normally would take on demand with a group of individuals and then work privately with an instructor to come in and instruct on certain modules of that class. That works perfectly. Can I take a public class? Definitely. All of these modalities are always still going to be available publicly. So no matter what type of training you need, the modality that fits you best is also going to work in public or private training environments. So how do I decide what's right for me? Well, these are things I think you ought to look at as factors to making your decision. One is your timing. If you've got an immediate need for a rollout of a new product that you should have had training 2 weeks ago, you're probably still going to be looking for traditional instructor-led training or virtual instructor-led training. That 5 days in class is what you need. You need to get in, you need to get the training quickly, get out, and get back to work to get that product implemented. If you know you're getting ready to roll something out in 6 months, then a blended or an on-demand approach might be right for you. You can learn a little bit over time and then be ready when that rollout comes. What's your price points? If instructor-led training is too expensive, then we know on-demand's the next level to go to. So you've got to take into consideration what your price point is to help that determine what the best training is. I advise you, though, don't always look at the cheapest option. That cheapest option might not give you really the best return on investment that you can have. Do you need assessments before and after? A lot of public classes don't have that. Some on-demand do. Private classes can have that. So is that important to you that after the training people get certified? or people take some type of assessment? Is it important that the students have an assessment done prior to training so that the content can be better customized to fit their needs? What type of return on investment are you looking for? Sometimes paying too much might not give back that return that you're looking for. Or the opposite. Something that looks good. Oh, $25 for a training class and through a Groupon might be $25 that could be done just reading something on the internet. Really look to work with a training provider that's going to give you a true return on that investment that you're spending. And then I always kind of categorize, and this is similar to time, is, am I training for growth or am I training because I need to? In a lot of organizations, employee growth is important. And even though I might not be a Microsoft DBA, getting training on Microsoft SQL Server could help me to be a better developer. So it's not job related, but it's a personal growth relationship training that I'm getting. The other is just, is it a need to know? And again, back to that time factor is, I need this for my job to continue on, and how long am I going to have until I have to know this? So there's all these different factors that can be placed into the decision of what type of training should I be offering and be providing and going to for my organization. I'd like to thank you for your time today. Again, my name is John Ecken. I am one of the principal owners of Tandem Solution. And if you like this presentation or have any questions, please reach out to us. We're happy to work with you and provide you a training solution that fits your time, your budget, the return on investment that you're looking for. Thank you.